For decades, scientists wondered how close humans came to disappearing before history even began. You have probably been told that our history was a slow and steady climb to the top. You have been told that we always dominated the world around us, but you have been lied to. The truth is much scarier. There was a point in time where our entire species almost vanished forever. The question of why we almost died out sounded simple at first. Did our ancestors ever face true extinction? For a very long time, nobody knew for certain. Fossils from this time were very rare. Bones were scattered across different continents. The story of our past had a massive gap that lasted for over 100,000 years. For years, that gap stayed open like a dark hole in our history. Scientists called it the Big Empty. Now recent evidence has finally solved this mystery. We finally know the story of how we almost died and why we survived. The answer takes us back about 900,000 years. That is so long ago that if you walked back 1 year for every step you took, you would circle the entire Earth 9 times. This was long before modern humans like us existed. This was long before language as we know it. There were no cities or farms or tools made of metal. Only early human ancestors lived then. Scientists call them hominins. They walked upright. They used simple stone tools made of flint. They survived by hunting and gathering what they could find. They were tough and they were smart. But even the toughest animals can be wiped out by a change they cannot control. The first reveal that something went wrong came from climate records. Scientists looked at ice cores drilled deep in Antarctica. These ice cores are like a record of the weather from long ago. They show that a sudden change happened to the world. Temperatures dropped sharply across the entire planet. This was not a normal cold spell like a bad winter. This was a global shift that changed everything. Scientists call this time marine isotope stage 22. It marks the first truly severe ice age cycle in Earth's history. It was a time of massive death. This was a time when everything was bigger and scarier back then. Giant cats and massive bears ruled the land. But even those giants could not stop the cold. Ice spread from the north and south. Rain stopped falling in places that used to be green. Much of the Earth dried out and became a desert. The second reveal came from the ocean floor. When ice grows on the land, the oceans fall because the water is trapped in the ice. During this period, sea levels dropped about 110 meters. That is over 360 feet. That is taller than a 30-story building. If you stood on the beach back then, you would see the water pull away for miles. Huge areas of land that were underwater became dry. Rivers vanished into the sand. Lakes shrank until they were just salty puddles. Food became very scarce for our ancestors. They lived in Africa, where the grass died and the trees stopped growing fruit. Dust layers in ocean cores off the African coast grew thicker during this time. This dust came from expanding deserts. It showed that the wind was blowing dirt from places where forests used to be. For a long time, we thought our ancestors just moved to better places. We thought they were smart enough to find a new home. But the new evidence proves we were wrong. Most of them did not find a new home. Most of them simply died. For a long time, people believed that the human population grew slowly and steadily for millions of years. This is one of the biggest misconceptions in history. People think we just kept getting more numerous as we got smarter. But the fossils told a different story. Between 900,000 years ago and 800,000 years ago, there are almost no human fossils at all. It is like our ancestors just vanished from the map. Scientists were shocked by this silence in the rocks. They had to find out where everyone went. The third reveal came from a new way of looking at our own bodies. Scientists did not just look at old bones this time, they looked at our DNA. They looked at the genetic code inside every person alive today. They used a new computer tool called FitCol. This tool allows them to look back in time through our genes. It works like a time machine for biology. They looked at the DNA of over 3,000 people from all over the world. What they found was terrifying. They discovered that about 930,000 years ago, the human population crashed. It did not just drop a little bit. It fell off a cliff. The numbers show that 98% of our ancestors died out during this time. Imagine if you had 100 friends and 98 of them died suddenly. That is how close we came to the end. Only 2 people out of every 100 were left to carry on the species. This is what scientists call a population bottleneck. It is like trying to pour a whole bucket of water through a tiny straw. Most of the water stays behind. Only a few drops get through. Those few drops are the ancestors of everyone on Earth today. The evidence shows that the number of breeding adults dropped to just 1,280 people. Think about that for a second. Only 1,280 people were left on the entire planet. That is a very small number. You could fit every single person left on Earth into a small high school gym. You could put them all on one city bus and still have room for their luggage. This tiny group of people was all that stood between us and extinction. If a few more people had died, or if a single sickness had hit that group, humans would not exist today. We were not the masters of the world. We were a failing species huddling in the cold. The investigation into this mass death became more intense as scientists looked for more proof. They wanted to know how long this crash lasted. The results were even more shocking. This tiny population of about 1,300 people stayed that small for a very long time. They were stuck at that low number for over 100,000 years. That is more than 1,000 generations of humans living on the edge of death. For 100,000 years, our ancestors were an endangered species. They were rarer than giant pandas are today. They were rarer than tigers. They were struggling every single day just to find enough food to survive the next sunrise. If you were sent back in time to this period, you would die instantly without modern tools. The world was a frozen desert filled with top hunters that wanted to eat you. There were giant saber-toothed cats with teeth as long as steak knives. There were hyenas the size of small horses, and there were only a few hundred humans left to fight them off. The struggle for survival was a scoreboard where humans were losing badly for a long time. While our ancestors were dying out, other animals were doing just fine. Crocodiles have survived every major mass death for 200 million years. They are the winners of the survival game. They did not care about the ice or the drought, but our ancestors were different. We needed a lot of food and water to keep our big brains working. When the plants died and the rain stopped, we began to starve. The dominance hierarchy of the world had changed. Humans were no longer near the top. We were hiding in the shadows, just trying to stay alive. Scientists had to prove that this crash happened exactly when the climate changed. They needed a smoking gun to link the death of our ancestors to the freezing weather. The proof came from comparing the genetic clock to the climate records. A genetic clock works by counting mutations in our DNA. Mutations happen at a steady rate over time. It is like the ticking of a watch. By counting how many differences there are between people, scientists can calculate exactly when a population grew or shrank. 3 different teams of experts tested this. They all got the same result. The clock pointed exactly to 930,000 years ago. This was the same time that the ice cores showed the massive drop in temperature. The 2 pieces of evidence fit together perfectly. The case was starting to close. Now we know how they died. The cold and the dry air killed the plants. The plants dying killed the big animals they hunted. Our ancestors were left with nothing to eat and no water to drink. It was a systematic timeline of extinction. First the weather changed, then the food vanished, then the population crashed. This happened across Africa and Eurasia at the same time. Many groups of early humans probably died out completely. The ones in Europe likely froze to death as the glaciers moved south. The ones in Asia likely died of thirst as the monsoon rains failed. Only one small group survived in a safe place. Scientists believe this refuge was likely in Africa, where some small patches of green land remained. This discovery was only published recently in major journals like Science and Nature. Most people still believe the old stories that we were always successful. But you now have the insider knowledge. You know that we are the children of survivors who nearly lost everything. This knowledge changes how we see ourselves in the world. We often feel like we are in control of our lives. We plan for the future and we build big things, but our history shows that we are very fragile. For over 100,000 years, our entire species balanced on a knife edge. One more bad drought or one more cold century and there would be no humans today. This perspective helps make sense of our own mortality. Everything dies eventually. Even top hunters go extinct. But the pattern shows that life finds a way to continue. Even when 98% of a species dies, the remaining 2% can rebuild the world. This is the natural cycle of life across deep time. Death is not the end of the story. It is part of the process of change. The bottleneck teaches us that survival is earned by location and adaptation. Our ancestors survived because they found a way to live through the worst weather the Earth had ever seen. They were the ultimate winners in the game of life. The recovery from this death event is just as interesting as the crash itself. About 813,000 years ago, the population finally started to grow again. The weather began to get better, the ice melted a little bit, and the rains returned to Africa. The land became green again. Our ancestors could finally find enough food to raise more children. Scientists have mapped this recovery very clearly. When the population grew, it did not just go back to the way it was before. It came back stronger. The survivors had changed. They had learned new skills to survive the hard times. Some scientists believe this is when humans first learned how to control fire. Fire was the ultimate tool for survival in a cold world. It provided warmth and it allowed people to cook meat. Cooked meat is easier to eat and provides more energy for the brain. This might be why human brains started to get bigger right after the bottleneck ended. The pressure of almost dying forced us to get smarter. It was a hard lesson learned in the dark. The evidence for this comes from archaeological sites where charred bones and ash start to appear more often. These sites were excavated by teams from major universities like the University of Cambridge and the University of Rome. They used a method called radiocarbon dating, which measures the decay of carbon in old objects. It is like a chemical clock that tells you exactly how old a fire pit is. The dates from these fires match the time when the human population started to boom again. This is another piece of the puzzle falling into place. The mystery of our survival is being solved by looking at the tools our ancestors left behind. They were not just lucky, they were inventors. They took the lessons of death and used them to build a better life. The final proof of this entire event comes from the way our genes look today. Because so few people survived the bottleneck, we all have very similar DNA. If you compare two humans from different sides of the planet, they are more similar to each other than two chimpanzees from the same forest. This is because we all come from that same tiny group of 1,300 survivors. We are all related to each other more closely than we think. This is a scientific fact verified by labs in China, Italy, and the United States. It is a shared history of near extinction written in our blood. This is the ultimate closure for the story of our past. We no longer have to guess why there are so few fossils or why our DNA is so similar. The population crash explains everything. It is the smoking gun of human history. The evidence stack is complete. We have the climate records showing the cold. We have the ocean cores showing the drought. We have the genetic clocks showing the crash. And we have the fire pits showing the recovery. All the pieces fit together perfectly. The debate is over. Scientists have closed the case. The question of what happened during those missing 100,000 years is definitively answered. We now know exactly how our ancestors lived and died. Understanding this pattern of death and survival brings a sense of peace. It shows that we are part of something much bigger than our own lives. We are part of a chain of life that has survived the most extreme challenges. Species rise and they spread across the earth. They face stress, and many of them vanish forever. But some survive by chance and by being tough. Survival is not a guarantee for any species. It is a prize that is won through struggle. The bottleneck teaches us this very clearly. It shows that death is natural across geological time. It is the price of survival through near extinction. This knowledge changes how we see our own limited time on Earth. We are the lucky ones who are here because 1,300 people refused to give up 900,000 years ago. We carry their strength in our genes every day. The mystery that puzzled scientists for 50 years is solved. The evidence has settled this forever. We have the complete death story of our ancestors. Human dominance was never inevitable. It was a near miss that we barely escaped. The pattern of life continues, and we are the current chapter in a very long book. This perspective helps make our own mortality feel more natural and less frightening. We are part of the cosmic story of life on Earth, and that story is now fully mapped and understood. The case of the missing humans is closed. We know the truth, we know the cause, and we know that life goes on. This is the definitive answer we have been looking for. The story of our past is complete and the mystery is gone. We can look back at the deep time of our history and feel satisfied that we finally understand how we got here and what it took to survive. The journey of the 1,300 survivors is our journey too, and their victory over death is our victory. The evidence proves it beyond any doubt. The pattern of survival is clear. We are the survivors of the greatest crisis in the history of our kind, and knowing that makes all the difference in how we see the world today. This completes our understanding of the extinction event that almost ended the human race. The mystery is solved and the question is answered for good. Scientists have done their job, and the truth is finally out. We now have the closure we need to understand our place in the history of life. Death and life are two sides of the same coin, and our history shows that life can win even against the worst odds. That is the message of the bottleneck, and that is the truth of our past. The story is finished, the mystery is over, and the truth is finally ours to keep. No doubt remains about what happened 900,000 years ago. The evidence has spoken, and the case is closed forever. We are here today because a few people survived the dark and the cold. And that is a story worth knowing. It is a story of death and a story of life. And now we know the whole thing from beginning to end. The pattern of existence is mapped, and the mystery of our survival is solved. This is the final word on how we almost died and how we came back from the edge. The story of human extinction is no longer a mystery. It is a proven fact of history, and we are the living proof of that survival. The case is closed.